Public Affairs programming on WQPT is brought to you by the Singh Group at Merrill Lynch, serving the wealth management needs of clients in the region for over 25 years.
Illinois lawmakers get ready to come together in Springfield next week, but in an election year, can lawmakers really come together? And who has been a leader in preserving our riverfront? It's your turn to tell us in the cities. You can nominate a real leader in our community. In a moment, making your voice heard for the Eddie Awards. But first, in this bicentennial year for Illinois, it's the state legislature's 100th session. But besides the pomp and celebration of a milestone year, 2018 is also a political year. Illinois primary elections are in March, general elections are in November, and if you don't think that'll have an impact starting next week in the legislature, you've got another thing coming. Joining us is Republican State Representative Tony McCombie, Democratic State Representative Mike Halpin. Both of you, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Let me start with you. Is anything going to get accomplished, or is there going to be a lot of posturing because it's an election year?
Well, I actually disagreed with your opening statement. I'm sorry already to disagree with you, but no, for me, and I don't think that politically that is really going to impact much. There is going to be a lot of activity with all of the open seats, but a lot of that is the primaries, and they're not in Springfield. So I think you're going to see a lot of action outside of Springfield throughout the state, but in Springfield, I think we'll get to business. I actually do.
Do you see much of a standoff, though, between the executive branch and the legislative branch? Because that's what we saw all last year.
Well, I think you're going to see a little more of that, of course, but I also think that after last year and the votes that were made, that they realized that we're gonna get things done regardless. So it's better to work together than to work against each other. That seems to be the temperature.
So how important was 2017 for setting the stage for an easier 2018, I guess?
It was incredibly important, and I think voters expect us to do our job regardless of whether we have an election or not. And we can build off of our bipartisan budget from last year, set that as a goal for this year, and get it done, again, working together. I don't think any of us can slack off just because there's also a campaign going on. It's up to us to balance that with our time management and balance our responsibilities to get the job done.
One of the biggest problems already is from last year, and that has to do with school funding. Representative Halpin, we've got the governor who disagrees with certain parts of it, having to do with some of the private school vouchers and the plans there. How does that get settled? Because isn't that almost on the front burner as you walk into the Capitol?
I'm fairly confident that we can resolve that issue. I'm not exactly sure what the governor is looking for at this point. The bill that he vetoed was one that he requested from us as a fix or a correction to the funding formula. It was passed unanimously in the House. If he has other things that he wants to get done, he should come to the General Assembly, draft a new bill, and we can try to work on it to get it done. That's just the way the process should be. We can't continue to delay these schools getting funding under the new formula.
Well, Representative McCombie, how do you see? I mean, in a way you thought maybe the dust would have settled on this issue, but it certainly has not.
Well, from my understanding, the fix that came through we thought was the fix, but I actually spoke with another representative yesterday, and she'd stated that there was some issues with some of the private schools not being able to receive those scholarships. I personally disagreed with that piece of it, and I think Representative Halpin did as well. But because mostly we can't afford a $75 million to $100 million hole in our general fund, or for education. So I think the fix will come, but they knew about the problem, and from my understanding, ISB was going to come forth with the correction. So I'm also a little baffled on the procedure of the veto, to be quite honest with you. It's all very quick, so I can't speak on his actions, but I think that will be something we'll take care of right away.
What do you end up saying to like the superintendent in East Moline or some of the other school districts that have been very vocal saying we need this money, we need it now, and saying be patient? That's a pretty tough message.
From my understanding, the funds were still going to be 3 months out. And this piece is not going to change that from still happening. It's going to, I think, affect the private side. It's not going to affect the public. That's what we're being told. I don't know if that's what you're being told. But
yeah, and the good news, the way that the reform bill was structured, the hold harmless meant that every school is getting at least what it got last year already. And so the regular payments are still coming in. It's just the new calculations for the funding formula that are still in process and are a couple months away.
So what do you see for schools this coming year? I mean, more reform is needed. What do you still think needs to be done to make Illinois a better education state?
The biggest thing that we need to do now is honor the commitment we made in last year's budget for a minimum of $350 million additional money. And I would like to go above and beyond that, because that's the whole goal of this funding formula. The idea is to allow the state to pick up some of the slack so that local school districts can in turn lower their property tax, lower our property taxes. So that's the biggest thing we can do right now, is pass another budget that includes more than what we've already promised for funding.
And I know you're always a little concerned about that. I mean, you got to stay within the budget.
Absolutely. And my concern is if we don't meet our promise of the $350 million, Tier 1 schools and Tier 2 schools won't receive any extra funding, and that's you know, the Tier 2 especially, that's going to be a problem. So I don't know if we're to the point that we can give more, but we need to. My biggest thing is I want to push for us to be evaluating how this new bill is working, because on an annual basis, and that is not how the bill is set up. You know, for us to look at it in 3 or 5 years, to me, is not going to give us enough time to catch problems. It's going to be reactive instead of, you know, and I don't think we should continue to do business that way.
We're also seeing that a lot of the federal actions that are occurring right now are going to have a great impact on Illinois. Let's start with the federal budget agreement and the tax, not budget agreement, but budget plan, but the tax overhaul plan that's already is going through Congress. Tell me about the impact in Illinois that you see from that, because we're now seeing Iowa saying that tax reform is its #1 priority, at least for Governor Reynolds. What about tax reform in Illinois then?
Yeah, this is a problem that actually affects both Iowa and Illinois. The cap on state and local taxes as a deduction is going to affect people on both sides of the river here in the Quad Cities. I wish they had taken a harder look at that and not included in the package, but we need to focus on what we can do in Illinois to grow our own incomes here in the states to minimize the effect of that.
The cap is really going to have quite an impact, particularly on what they call higher tax states, and Illinois is one of them. Is that a major concern for you as far as revenues coming into Illinois, or even the impact of your constituents?
Well, I think anytime that you're amending or reforming a tax, whether it's federal or the state, you have to look at the whole picture, and hopefully that's what was done with this plan. So if they took in one area, they gave in another. I think that's the biggest piece of it, because then it can balance out. There's some things in there that they say are going to hurt the middle class, and just for an example, one of them with the mortgage interest. You know, the cap right now is $100,000 or a $1 million home. It's going to change to a $750,000. Well, I like to consider myself the middle class, and I certainly cannot afford a $750,000 mortgage. So to me, that's not going to be one of those things that affect the middle class. And if the businesses do what they say they're going to do to return fees and rates back to the constituents, put more money into the economy, then it might work. I think it's too soon to tell in Illinois if it's going to be good or bad. Personally, it's
wait and see in so many different ways.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the other federal impact that has to do with marijuana legislation, with Attorney General Sessions saying he wants to crack down just at a time when Illinois seems to be liberalizing more of its rules, or at least discussing it. Medical marijuana, completely different than recreational marijuana. We all know that. Medical marijuana, as you have heard, some of the dispensaries in our area are saying it's still too restrictive for people who need this type of medicine. Do you see progress in there, or do you think there should be even a loosening of standards for Illinois?
On the medical side,
marijuana.
Yes. On the medical side, yes. I think we need to open up for different causes, and I think the process isn't working as smoothly as they would like it to. But it's a pilot program, so this is where the time you fix it and make it more efficient. So as long as they listen to those problems and fix them, then the pilot program will work. But definitely one of the things I hear from constituents is their particular illness is not meeting the requirements, and sometimes they're pretty big issues. So I think I am supportive of expanding that.
Do you see that there still is too much of a I just want to say the word bugaboo for some unknown reason in regards to marijuana, that it's that people are just, the whole reefer madness from the 40s, 50s is still with us today. I mean, should it be more liberalized, or is this really a concern because a lot of people say it's a gateway drug to other drugs?
In my experience over the past couple of years during the campaign and my first year as a representative, there seems to be a wide variety of folks and groups that are supportive of expanding access to marijuana. What I think the federal government is going to have the effect, is going to have a chilling effect on various states in the country. I think they're trying to impose that federal will, and that doesn't really sit well with people that I've talked to. I think the states do have a responsibility to be a laboratory for medicinal marijuana. And when these companies, we're trying to bring businesses to Illinois, when these companies are worried about an impending, federal criminal case, that's not going to encourage them to be here.
But to be honest, the biggest drug issue that we have in Illinois right now is the ongoing opioid crisis. The governor's got a task force that's going on. Do you see any progress as far as treatment or any type of help in this area, even for law enforcement?
I think so. We've taken several steps over the past year. There was a bipartisan bill that would require doctors to maintain records in the state database. So if you have patients that are drug seeking, those doctors and pharmacies can communicate and hopefully provide help to those individuals. I think that's one area where we've been able to cooperate greatly on both sides of the aisle down in Springfield for the past year.
It certainly seems the crisis is real. What government can do is debatable.
Absolutely. In Lee County, I think spearheaded the Safe Passage. Whiteside County, and I know Rock Island County has started with the Safe Passage, and that's working very well. But I just left a meeting today, and they're having folks come with different ailments, whether it be an alcoholic, and they can't help those folks, or meth is also a very much growing concern. With Illinois having about, they think Lieutenant Governor said about 8.5% of the deaths in Illinois. This is one area where Illinois cannot be, first in the game. So we want to make sure to do everything that we can to get folks the help. There again, I think oftentimes before, hospitals and doctors were trying to manage pain, so folks weren't hurting, and now they're learning new processes that maybe some pain is okay, or maybe we treat it in a different way through therapy or a different kind of a prescription, and they're being very proactive in understanding that. So I think over time, with the combination of all of those actions, we hope to see certainly a decrease of those numbers of deaths.
There's another issue that I want to get to, and I know that we don't have that much time, but I still want to talk about sexual harassment, and there's been an issue, as we've seen played out dramatically over the past year in society, and now we're seeing it in government as well, being more proactive, being more sensitive. Illinois is taking steps in that area. Is it enough so far?
Well, from what I understood, the position that was monitoring that had been open for several years before we got there. Now that has been filled, and from my understanding, they're being very proactive on following up on those cases. We've personally had to go through training. Our staff's going through training. I think it's very important and certainly supportive. The best thing that I can say is, as long as you're behaving in a respectful manner, there should be no issue. It kind of blows my mind how blown up this has gotten, how crazy and how bad behavior. I guess you just have to also be at a point where you do unto others, and I personally have not, luckily, had to deal with that, and I certainly would be shouting from the rooftops.
But the legislature, everywhere else, it's zero tolerance from this point on, and then there should be a heavy penalty for anybody who abuses?
Absolutely, and as a newcomer, it was a shock to me. It's common sense. You just have good behavior. Right. But there's a culture down there in the past that sometimes is slow to change. I think the bill that we passed requiring training and requiring the position to be filled and allowing that Inspector General to look back at complaints filed from years past, I think it's a great first step. It's a good way for the legislature to be a role model for the rest of the state of Illinois,
which is important.
Yeah, and I think all of this happening in the nation, I think it really does, whether you're a man or a woman, it has opened up them to speak out as well. And I think that's the important piece. You have to feel comfortable to speak out against somebody who might be higher up on the ladder than you.
Representative Tony McCombie, thank you so much for joining us. Mike Halpin, very good to see you as well.
Thank you, Jen.
In a moment, honoring those making an impact on the lifeline of the cities, the Mississippi River. But first, Laura Adams has some ideas that may entertain you if you, your family, your friends, all want to go out and about.
This is Out and About for January 8th through 14th. Hi, I'm Laura Adams. Be a tourist in your own backyard weekend is coming up January 12th through 15th. Get your free VIV wristband to receive your discounts from area businesses. Or explore Monsterology at the Dare to Explore program at the Davenport Library January 11th at 4. Registration required. Ice Extravaganza returns for its 6th year, January 13th at the Freight House, with interactive ice sculptures, kids' activities, and more. The Martin Luther King Jr. celebration, The Time Is Now, takes place at Centennial Hall, January 13th. Or join the Arc of the Quad Cities for their annual trivia night at the Quad Cities Plumbers and Pipe Fitters Hall, January 13th. Augustana College present their 23rd Annual Hispanic Film Festival January 10th through February 7th. Films begin at 7 in Hanson Hall and are free and open to the public. Klezmer. It's music, it's stories, it's jokes, it's singing. If the spirit moves you, it's dancing too. The Java Jews Klezmer Band perform at Wallenberg Hall January 14th. Or join It's a Mystery for hilarious comedy whodunit Teach Me to Murder. Reservations required for dinner and show. The Manny Lopez Big Band takes to the Circa 21 Speakeasy stage on January 12th, and Playcrafters Barn Theater present the thriller Woman in Black, where an aging Arthur Kipps tells the tale of an ominous encounter to a young solicitor. What secrets are uncovered and who is the ghostly woman? For more information, visit WQPT.org.
Thank you, Laura. Beth Ann Gavin is a Quad Cities singer-songwriter whose love of music started in her teens and continues today. Tonight, we want to feature one of her performances at the River Music Experience. From the community stage, here's Beth Ann Gavin with Relive the Past.
Telephone wires, deep in my heart, your voice starts a fire. It's not in the words that are cordial at best. The notes of your voice pound my heart through my chest. Turn my head and my back follows suit. I fall into bed like I fall I've sang love songs to one that I've lost. It's better to feel than pretend that you don't. It's better to feel than pretend that you don't. It's better to feel than pretend that you don't.
Beth Ann Gavin with Relive the Past. The Mississippi River is the focus of attention right now as bald eagles swoop down for their annual winter feeding near the locks and dams in our region. But the river gets attention all year long from a diverse group of people. The group River Action wants to celebrate all of those efforts. Joining us is the executive director of River Action and co-founder, Kathy Wine. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Jim.
Going to talk about the Eddie Awards right now. I mean, I think it's 18th year. Where did this come from? I mean, what's the reason?
Well, we knew we wanted to honor innovators, influencers, people that work really hard. And one of our board members, Jim Standard at the time, said, well, that describes an Eddie, someone going against the current to get something done. And so we call them the Eddie Awards, and our award has an image of an Eddie. That has been good because that keeps us on focus, and those are the people we celebrate.
I think it's interesting because I want to go through two different groups. There's a real obvious area that you salute, those that are involved in education, stewardship, and revitalization. That's really kind of obvious, and those are the people you want to set aside, but also some less obvious, people that are involved in arts, in design, and even those who use the river extensively. Tell me a little bit about that part.
Okay, I'll talk about river activity for a minute. We honored just last year Dean Mathias, who is someone who gets out and helps create the Rock River Trail almost by himself sometimes. He is usually on his bike, takes along some kind of pruning shears or machete or something.
Anything to clear the trail.
Anything to clear the trail, keep it open in order to extend the Rock River Trail, the Hennepin Canal Trail, all of that. And that kind of river activity is something we applaud.
Because River Action doesn't just want you to look at the river and see it from a distance and preserve it.
Right.
You want it to be used responsibly as well.
That's right. As people get involved in it, they become stewards of the river. You don't unless you know it. And you won't know it unless you can get to it. And that access, those public trails, all of that are part of getting to it. So those river activities, that extends from everything from the Channel Cat to what I just described with one person cleaning trails. Those are the things you have to
But another category is design. And that's almost like, what, construction nearby, buildings nearby, and how they can complement the river?
Yes, yes. A lot of times designers must think in terms of connecting to the river or taking advantage of river views. I'll give you an example of that. Iowa American Water had to build some new buildings on their property down near Mound Street and River Drive. They spent 10% more to make the design compatible with the buildings that were already there, very good looking buildings, but they went that extra to make them perfectly designed to fit in with the period that the originals were built.
And at the same time using the red brick and all that to mirror it, but also to create the flood wall and the containment area, which was a major engineering effort as well.
That protects our water. Yes, absolutely. That's those are the kinds of things. Well, WIU did a great job when they designed with Halliburton Root out of Chicago. That's a fine design firm.
For the campus.
For the campus. They have wonderful river views. They've done LEED building with wise use of stormwater, lighting, materials, all of that, so that it's environmentally sustainable.
Well, and also being cognizant of the flooding that occurs near the Bend Butterworth Parkway, and that they have built in such a way that the floodwaters can rise and it won't affect the buildings nor affect the watershed as it were.
We applaud all the time the efforts to maintain the floodplain because that is so important. That floodwater replenishes the aquifer. That floodwater helps flooding downstream. It mitigates for flooding downstream. All those things that we do in that floodplain are important.
Well, I always say that like in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, into the 70s, we turned our back to the river. We built buildings up against, we had warehouses that were right there. And now we can't do anything but look straight at that river and enjoy it. So who do you want to be nominated? What are you looking for? And if a person wants to do it, how do they do it?
Yes, well, we're looking for those, again, I call them influencers or innovators or people who have worked tirelessly to make something happen. And you can nominate online. Riveraction.org, go to the Eddie Awards and make your nomination right there. Very easy. Our jury looks at all of those that are nominated, and our awards are given out on April 20th this year, just prior to Earth Day at the Figge Museum. So we'll be celebrating that night.
But don't wait, because the deadline's coming up for the nominations.
That's right, the 19th. We'd like to have them by the 19th.
January 19th, yeah. And do you usually get a number of I don't know, possible recipients? I mean,
yes, we do.
So you get a good response.
Oh yes, we have a very robust list and very qualified list of nominees to judge.
And I know I can't let you leave without talking a little bit about what River Action has coming up this year. I mean, you sponsor so many events on the riverfront. Is there anything that you really want to highlight that's new for 2018?
Yes, we are doing some new things in the field of conservation. For the last 12 years, we've worked in Rock Island County Conservation. We've had funding from various foundations that wanted us to do improvements at Loud Thunder and Green Valley, and I could go on and on. And it's the total of $120,000 initial seed money has been multiplied into $1.3 million that we've raised in projects. So we went to Scott County and said, we'd like to do the same thing. Here's what our record shows we can do. And we're starting out with a $20,000 project for this year, and we'll be doing some things in Scott County. At Scott County Park and Pigeon Creek Park and other places. We'll be doing some conservation.
Ongoing
That's one
effort
of the new things.
to make a difference, and that's great.
Yeah.
Kathy Wine, Executive Director of River Action, also co-founder. So many years of good work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us. WQPT is also doing its part to support the military men and women in the cities who are serving our nation. We call it Embracing the Military, and there will be another great opportunity for military men and women, retirees, civilians, and spouses to get together and meet one another. Twice a month, a coffee break is scheduled at the Army Community Service Center on Arsenal Island. Children, welcome as well. The next one is Monday from 9:30 to 10:30 in Building 110. And WQPT is just days away from Champagne on the Rocks. Tickets still on sale for our premier fundraising event. Join us at the Davenport Outing Club Friday, January 26th for dinner, an auction, and a chance for you to win a fine piece of jewelry, plus a live auction where you can bid on getaways, Iowa football tickets, and a whole lot more. Head to our website, WQPT.org, see some of the other items that could be yours, and we hope to see you at Champagne on the Rocks, January 26th at the Outing Club. On the air, on the radio, on the web, and on your mobile device. Thanks for taking some time to join us as we talk about the issues on the cities.
Public Affairs programming on WQPT is brought to you by the Sing Group at Merrill Lynch, serving the wealth management needs of clients in the region for over 25 years.